Just when we thought the era of violent legislative proceedings was behind us, members of Jigawa House of Assembly choose to surprise Nigerians with a free-for-all during legislative proceedings. And Nigeria might not be doing badly on the global political scene after all, with the endorsement of a Nigerian to be president of the UN General Assembly. Hello everyone and welcome to Politics Today live on Channels Television, your home for the news. I am Kayode Okikiolu here in Lagos, Nigeria. Well, we'll begin with news coming from Jigawa State, where honorable members of the State House of Assembly threw caution to the wind earlier today. And the pandemonium that ensued was definitely far from being honorable. Do take a look. So what exactly happened? Well, this is what we know so far, even though journalists were eventually barred from interviewing any of the lawmakers. Now, trouble is said to have started when the Speaker, Right Honorable Isa Idris, announced plans to amend the House standing rule such that any principal officer that had been impeached cannot vie for the position again. In essence, all impeached speakers, deputy speakers, majority and minority leaders and chief whips that had been impeached will not be able to recontest for the positions again. As you can imagine, that proposed rule was met with stiff resistance by some members. And then a member representing Yankwashi constituency, Honorable Al-Qasim Karkana, is then reported to have hit the mace, which resulted in its destruction. Well, it's the first mace-related incident this year, and hopefully it'll be the last. Well, let's move over to some other political stories making the rounds in the country. Here's our political roundup.
The People's Democratic Party governorship candidate in Osun State, Senator Ademola Adeleke, has been granted bail by the Mbappe Magistrate Court in Abuja. Senator Adeleke was arraigned before the court today after he was taken into custody by the police on Monday on fresh charges of forgery. In a bench ruling, Magistrate Mohammed Shehu granted the lawmaker bail in the sum of 2 million naira and one surety who was a resident of Abuja. Adeleke's counsel, Mr. Chris Adebiyi, had earlier objected to the hearing, insisting that a federal high court in Osun State had granted an order restraining the police from arresting the lawmaker. The magistrate adjourned the case to June the 25th for further hearing. The Rivers State Governor has announced intentions of the state government to move sanctions against traditional rulers, local council chairmen, and leaders of communities with increasing cases of cultism, kidnapping, and other violent crime. The governor took this position in a meeting with all traditional rulers, community development chairmen, and council chairmen in the state.
The essence of being a chief, a traditional ruler, is not for you to wear just the regalia. There are so much responsibilities attached to it. You have to make sure your domain is in peace. There's peace in your domain.
The Allied People's Movement has questioned the disbandment of the Ogun State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal on the ground that the party may not get justice under the new panel headed by Justice Josephine Coker. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, the chairman of the party, Mr. Yusuf Dantale, insists that the disbandment of the original tribunal is without justification and influenced by members of the All Progressives Congress in an attempt to undermine the case of the APM and its candidate. The party is therefore requesting that a new judge be appointed to head the tribunal from a region of the country outside the southwest, which they believe will not be susceptible to influence from anybody.
We make bold to say that our petition is one that has chances of success at the tribunal, and we shall not entertain any misgiving that the APC is trying to bring in through manipulating different means.
Well, tonight on the program, we take politics up a notch and take a look at Nigeria's external political reality among the Committee of Nations. Well, earlier today, the president of the 73rd UN General Assembly, Maria Garces, disclosed that Nigeria is likely to take over the leadership of the United Nations General Assembly in June this year. Mrs. Garces had earlier met with President Muhammadu Buhari at the Aso Rock Villa in Abuja, and right after the meeting, she gave the name of Ambassador Tijani Bande as her likely successor, which some people have said is good for the country. Now, she also met with the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Geoffrey Onyema, who solicited her support on issues of climate change and recharging the Lake Chad.
Regarding the question of UN Security Council reform, I have to say, very honestly, that this is a process, one of the most complex, divisive and contentious negotiation processes at the UN. As we know, we need consensus to advance in a meaningful reform. The outcome of the reform is going to depend very much on the political will of member states themselves.
The climate-induced shrinkage of Lake Chad. And, for us, it's an existential issue because this is a lake that almost 30 million people depend on for their livelihood. And we have seen it shrink by almost 90% over the years. And this has created very severe challenges for the people of that sub-region and indeed for our country. And we are looking to have the support of the United Nations and your support in particular to address this challenge. And one of the mechanisms or strategies we have identified is the recharging of the lake. This is going to be a very capital-intensive effort and something in the order of 40 to 50 billion US dollars estimated, and clearly we're going to have to leverage on the international community because these are huge resources.
Well, as they say, no country is an island, and that's why diplomacy is almost equally as important as internal politics. So let's see how well Nigeria is doing in external politics. And to help us with that is a former envoy to UN Geneva, who is currently a UN independent expert on the Committee for Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. I'm talking about Ambassador Peters Emuze. He joins us live from our Abuja studio. Thank you for joining us tonight on the program.
For having me.
All right, now I'd like to begin with this question. As a person in your capacity, you've been exposed to governance systems across the world, so you have a good vantage opinion, if I may say, of what happens around the world. Now, the question is, from what you see in Nigeria, how would you rate Nigeria's politics vis-a-vis what you see outside there?
Are you talking about our internal politics?
Yes, internal politics, definitely.
Yeah. Well, Nigeria has been quite long now, in politics, so to speak. And I think over the years, we've been improving and improving for each political exercise we have. And that will be viewed in the eye of the international community as a big step forward. As a matter of fact, a big leap for us, judging by our history that have been characterized by so much interregnum of military rule.
Why I ask is, I hate to put you on the spot, but then you've seen reports coming from Jigawa State, from the Jigawa House of Assembly, and not a lot of people are happy about that, which is why I ask you, when you see reports such as this, what does that say? How long do we still have to go talking about internal politics?
Well, the Jigawa case might be an isolated case, and I'm sure you have seen in some foreign parliaments where you have, such high temper also rise. So one is not making an excuse for what is happening in Chigawa Parliament or the House of Assembly, but I mean, it's not something you see all the time.
All right. So now let's talk about Nigeria's chances for the coming United Nations General Assembly. Now, as it stands right now, if it happens, this will be the second time a Nigerian will be the president of the UN General Assembly. The last time was 1989 and 1990. So what are the chances of Nigerians or Nigeria as a whole?
Well, I think we have a high chance. Before these, elections actually, take place, there are some, what you might call some subterraneous underground work by the respective country that has interest in such a high or exalted position. So, and there is also the zoning formula of the UN system. And I think this time around, the presidency of the UN General Assembly is zoned towards Africa. So it is not unlikely that our mission in New York, and will have done a lot of spade work, and of course, haven't received the blessing of Mr. President, and Nigeria wants to go for that high, position. So it usually entails, hobnobbing and, meeting with the other African delegations or representations in New York, and usually a consensus is reached, and the whole thing just becomes like a fait accompli on the day of elections. Thank you.
All right. Now, we're being joined also by an ambassador, Ambassador Ginika Tor, UN Ambassador for Peace. Thank you for joining us on the program tonight. Now, before you joined us, we were talking about Nigeria's internal politics and how well we measure up when we look at it from an international perspective. But then we now looked at Nigeria's chances for the coming UN General Assembly, understanding that the Nigerian is being pushed to become president. So I'd like to take your view. Does Nigeria really stand a chance?
Of course, Nigeria stands a chance. Looking at the man that has emerged already, coming out almost unopposed, and as God will have it, the president of UNGA has already, officially announced him as the first candidate for this position. Nigeria stands a huge chance, and the visit of the president has gone a lot way to say, yes, we're going to have it. And it will be a great honor because this will be 30 years after the 44th section of the UNGA, when we have Joseph Garba as the president. This time, I think it is positive with the visit of the president.
Okay, so if we can rely on the optimism you have shared, I understand that the UN General Assembly is also involved in constituting the UN Security Council, and we know that security is a big deal to Nigeria right now. So what do you think that will do to the security in the country?
You agree with me that to whom much is given, much is expected. When you talk about security, it's not only about Nigeria, it has to do with the world, it has to do with Africa. And when you are given enormous responsibility, you also, that's prepare you to, to face the challenge. So it's going to be an enormous responsibility for Nigeria, government, Nigeria entirely, even us, to foster peace, unity, tackle global climate, and deal with insecurity in Nigeria and all over Africa. So it's not just Nigeria, it's all over Africa. So I believe that that's going to really make us to stand and face the challenges.
All right. Now, okay, now we'll get into more details in a bit, but then we'll also take a look at how Nigeria measures up in the eyes of the world, especially with the current challenges, like she said, of security and the economy, talking about the United Nations General Assembly. It is big for Nigeria, and when we come back, we'll talk more about that. Stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Now we're taking a different approach to Nigerian politics tonight as we touch base with international relations and diplomacy, which are very important to the success of any nation. And we'll still have with us Ambassador Ginika Tor. She is a UN Ambassador for Peace and was also Deputy Governorship candidate for APC in Enugu State. Also with us is Ambassador Emuze, a former envoy to UN Geneva, who is currently a UN independent expert on Committee for Economic, Social and cultural rights. I'd like to appreciate you for staying with us on the program. Now, before we went on the break, we were taking a look at Nigeria's chances at president of the United Nations General Assembly, and we talked about the UN Security Council. So I'd like us to go back to that conversation. There's been this drive for Nigeria being or having a permanent seat, one of the 5 permanent seats at the UN Security Council. How well are we gathering support for that? You mentioned some sort of lobbying to ensure that. So I'd like to take up Ambassador Emuze on this briefly. How well are we galvanizing support to get there?
Well, I don't know whether it's on the high table now, on the agenda, but, you know, it's been a while coming up now. And I remember the first time, you know, this thing came up, I was in the committee set up by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that was headed by the former president, the former president who handed over to the civilians. He actually, with the Anyaku committee, we are deeply involved in Nigeria's quest, you know, to, as much as possible, lobby, you know, many countries, you know, for Nigeria to have a permanent seat. But of course, a lot of waters have passed under the bridge since that time. You know, we have emerging countries like South Africa trying to give us a run for our money. And of course, you have North Africa as well. But there is no hiding the fact that Nigeria deserves, if there's going to be any zoning seat to the African continent or the third world countries, Nigeria decides, you know, to have his head above water in getting a seat at the Security Council. We deserve it because of our population. We deserve it because of our strength. We deserve it for the humanitarian role Nigeria has played in Africa, as well as the liberation of many countries in Africa. And I think it's almost like what should rightly belong to us, as a matter of fact.
Right.
That's what I would say.
Right. Okay. Now, if you've been following the trends lately, which I'm sure you have, you realize that you will hardly go to any country in the world where you will not find Nigerians. In fact, people have said if you don't find Nigerians in a particular country, then something might be wrong. And that brings to fore the issues of, you know, what really matters to those people there. We've had issues, for example, in Saudi Arabia recently, in South Africa, and in Ghana with Nigerian citizens there, and some of the issues that have come up. So I'd like to take up Ambassador Ginika Tor briefly on this. You have seen some of the trends in recent times with Nigerians going on social media saying we deserve better when we go to these countries. How do you respond to those discussions?
Well, Nigerians deserve better when they go to foreign countries. And you agree with me that we have a man of pedigree that has really stood the test of time, that has done a lot, and that is, apart from the president of this country, President Muhammad Buhari, who has chosen the right person in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He has tackled this issue. He has tried to, you know, train people to understand why they should even travel, what they should expect. And at the same time, he tried to let them know also that you don't have to say because you belong to a country, you go on committing crime, you know. So I think Nigeria deserves better. And I don't think we are doing badly in ensuring that also as government.
All right. Now, now that you've brought up Nigerians deserving better, it's also make you wonder that how do people outside Nigeria, countries outside Nigeria, view Nigerians? Now, as an ambassador, you've gone round and you know what people feel about Nigerians. So what is this general sense? How do people view Nigerians outside there?
Generally, people view Nigeria with a negative thought. But I keep saying it, that it's not just about Nigeria. It's just that we are all over. We have more people all over the world. We travel, just like you said. If you go to anywhere and you don't find a Nigerian there, then there must be a problem. So because we travel, we love to travel, we love to learn, we see traveling as being part of education. Everyone traveling would not go with the same attitude or the same character. So with one experiences or the other, they perceive Nigeria to be a negative place. Well, I don't see it that way because I've traveled also, and I see that the same thing you experience in Nigeria, you experience worse outside the country. So it's kind of negative, but with time, we'll get it better, and we begin to, rebrand the country and make the world understand that we are good people, we have good people, and we have good intentions, even when we travel outside the country.
Right. Okay, so let's try to set an agenda. If come June, Professor Tijani Bande emerges as a president of the UN General Assembly, let's try to set some form of agenda. And this is for Ambassador Emuze. What do you think should be top on his agenda if he emerges president?
Well, the General Assembly is a very powerful organ of the United Nations system, and it has about 5 to 6 committees which almost cover all the entire gamut of what the UN does, whether it's peace and security, is economic issues, the UN budget, and so on. And of course, as well as, the maintenance of international peace and security. So it's so all-embracing, so ramifying that you can use that platform to leverage on many countries, to see how you can get developmental aids to Nigeria. And of course, the panache to achieve a lot of things, that are intrinsic in our foreign policy, options. So it will be a very good opportunity for us if we get it. And you were just talking about the permanent UN Security Council seat a while ago. It could also serve as cannon fodder for whatever, Nigeria decides to do if those spaces are left open again,
right,
to expand the UN Security Council.
Right.
So now, that's why it is utmost, can I hear you?
Please go on. Please land.
Hello?
You can land, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Please go on.
Yeah, that's why I say it's imperative that we put all our strength in that elections. Like I said, I know a permanent mission in New York is up to the task, and with the backing of the federal government and of course the Ministry of Foreign Affairs,
right?
I don't have any doubt that we won't get the position.
Okay,
but
now
of course,
on a final note,
all this
on a final note, Ambassador Emuze, if I may come in right now. On a final note, I'd like to ask Ambassador Tor. A lot of people wonder, how will this change my life? I'm an average Nigerian. How would having a president at the UN General Assembly change things for me? So on a final note, how do you think this will change the lives of everyday Nigerians?
Oh, wow. In a lot of ways, it will change our lives because it's going to affect even those who think they travel and they're not treated better. And knowing that when somebody is given, like I said before, to whom much is given, much is expected.
Right.
It will give us a good light, give us a good color, to give us a good name. It will affect you positively because it's going to foster a greater alignment amongst other countries,
right,
to look at, especially inclusion. I'm not going to leave here without saying that.
Right.
For gender equality, gender inclusion, and of course, it will strengthen, like I said before, the global relationship to tackle climate change.
Okay.
And a lot of things, of course, will change. Empowerment for the youth, and a lot. So it's not just about Professor Muhammad Bande. It's all about us. It's positive for us. It will create enormous opportunities
Ambassador
for even
Ginikato,
Nigerians
I'll have to come in
travel.
now. Ambassador Ginikato, I'll have to come in now. You mentioned a good name, and they always say a good name is better than gold. So I believe that will mean good for Nigeria. Yeah. So we'd like to appreciate Ambassador Ginikato, UN Ambassador for Peace, for joining us tonight, as well as Ambassador Peter Emuze. He is a former president, UN Conference on Disarmament. We'd like to appreciate your time on the program tonight.
Thank you very much.
There you have it. That's our program tonight. Thank you for watching. I am Kayode. Have a fantastic night.